You're listening to another ambitious entrepreneur.network.com podcast, the voice for entrepreneurs and small business. Now, onto the show.
Welcome to the Christian Entrepreneurs Podcast, daily conversations with Christian entrepreneurs to inspire and empower Christian business owners to walk strongly in their faith, while build a thriving business that honors Him in every way. Now, over to your host, Anne-Marie Cross.
Welcome to another episode of the Christian Entrepreneurs Podcast. This is episode 17, and I'm your host, Anne-Marie Cross, brand and communication strategist, also known as the podcasting queen. Now, my guest today was once asked to sum up her view of life in 6 words, and her answer was, life is about choices. Choose wisely. Joining me on today's show is Lura Hobbs. Lura provides strategic marketing and advertising consultancy to consumer-focused companies and advertising and marketing agencies. Now, her expertise is vast, combining consumer data, business analysts into insights that deliver growth strategies, strategic brand planning, brand management, and developing stronger results-driven relationships between brands and their agencies. Now, on today's show, Laura's going to share Trust God, and we're going to share a verse with you as she shares these insights. Be very mindful and careful about the people that you have closest to you and who you decide to go into business partnership with, as well as walking away or quitting is not failure. And I know that today's show is going to impart lots of great insights for all of us. So welcome to the show, Laura.
Thank you. Thank you, Anne-Marie, for having me.
Business can have many ups and downs, and then throw in challenges between different parties who may have come together as a business partnership. I've experienced that myself too, and then having to end that abruptly can certainly leave you with a lot of emotions that, if you don't deal with them, can really fester inside. So I'm really looking forward to unpacking that, letting you share your insights around that, and of course how through the power and the strength of God you've been able to move through that, and continuing to share your strengths, share your expertise for your clients. So trusting God, share more about that. I mean, you mentioned in your guest profile, Proverbs 3 verses 5 to 6. Let me read that. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all of your ways, submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. I love that verse. It has so many incredible promises in there. And I tell you what, when we realize that we don't have to lean on ourselves and our strength, but rather on Him, amazing, isn't it?
It really makes all the difference. I think part of the challenge with our culture here in the States is we have this, this self-made, pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of mentality. Even as believers, we struggle with, this culture surrounds us with this mentality. But when it comes down to it, we really just have to trust and believe that He has the ultimate control, right? And in business, that's harder. And it's definitely counterculture. But what I found is there are definitely times when we need to let go and just trust that He's leading us in the right way, even if that path is completely counter to the culture and those of us around Him.
Mm. What I've also found in my life is that in times that I do surrender, and I'm with you, I mean, I'm one of these people that likes to have things in control. I like to have things planned out, and when they don't,
I want to feel like I'm in control.
Really. So really giving up that and surrendering, because that's what we are encouraged to do, can be really difficult for us. So I agree with that. But then there's times when we have done that, and then we look back, and then we can see just what was happening, and it's like there is no way that I could have generated that outcome were it not for the hand of God in this. I'm sure you've experienced this too, yes?
Oh, absolutely. So I shared with you in our pre-work, I recently walked away from a partnership, and I can't tell you how many people told me I was crazy. But it was one of those things where it didn't feel right. It wasn't right for me. I prayed and cried. And I just really felt a peace about walking away and just saying, I'm going to walk away, take some time off, spend some time with my family, and start over again. And for me, that really was a trust God moment, because I felt like I had clarity from him, even though it made sense to no one else outside of my husband and I. And it really was a surrender moment where I'm like, okay, Lord, I'm going to give this to you and let you take me where you're leading me. And it's scary,
Yes.
but it's also calming and peaceful at the same time.
That can be a very, as we said, a very scary thing to do. And for someone who is listening today and maybe right at the crossroads of having to make that decision, if you go back, because you've obviously gone through that, and so can share some insights. For you, around that time, what were some of the things that you did? Because sometimes God waits for us to make the first step, to step out and faith, to surrender before he then moves. So what was that? Take us back to that journey. What was happening for you at that time?
Well, I was traveling a lot, to the point where it really was detrimental to our home life. And the travel, the hours, it was taking a big toll. And then there was a lot of just conflict in terms of the partnership and where we were going and the strategic decisions that needed to be made in the business. So I think a lot of it became clear just in terms of me really focusing on what's most important and prioritizing in life where my time and my energy needed to be. And too much time and energy was going towards work and a business partnership that I knew ultimately wasn't where I would thrive and grow. And my marriage and my children and the rest of my life was suffering. And even though I was still carving out quiet time with God, my brain and my spirit were so disturbed all the time that I knew the only way to start over and give God a chance to give me a new path was to walk away.
Yeah. And that, as you say, that can take some time to get to that point where you go, you know what, but it's often the stirring in your heart when something's not comfortable, and no matter what you try and do, it remains there. So then when you did make that decision, and I just want to re-emphasize what you said, even though there were people around you that were saying, why are you doing this?
What are you doing?
Your husband, he was there supporting you, which is great. But often, sometimes these decisions, they don't make sense to anyone else, but they absolutely make sense to you. And making that decision. So fast forward to now, what are some of the differences? What are some of the changes and the impact that has had on your life and your relationships?
Well, it's crazy because even though I'm at a time of transition, I'm restarting my own business. I'm now back to square one, so to speak. There's a peace and a calmness that I can't really explain, because I should be completely panicked right now. Starting over is not fun, from ground zero, working at the kitchen table. But I have complete peace about where I am and what I'm doing. I completely feel like I'm in the right place, doing the right thing. And it's hard to describe going from feeling of constant conflict to going to peace. Even though I can't tell you that I have all the next steps laid out, I can't tell you that everything is going according to plan just yet. But I feel like I'm in the will of where God wants me to be. I think that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
It's a very calming feeling.
Yes, and I think that calming feeling is so important. And we know when we lean in, when we put God first, and we really do trust that he's got everything, in control. He's control of everything. The opportunities that I have found over the kind of subsequent period for me just continued to strengthen. And I'm sure that's the things that you'll find. What I've found, you'll be reminded of the things that you are great at and where he wants to place you. And you would never have seen that, I've found in my life. You'd never have seen that because you were rushing from one thing to the other. You were so drained. It was like, okay, I need to do meditation, some prayer. But it was like, okay, so what is this, 80% or 60% of your attention? So it is, it's completely different, isn't it? Because you just have this inner trust that it's all going to be okay, because it is.
It is. It is. It's hard to describe, because I've tried to describe this feeling of peace before, and I get the glazed eye kind of, I have no idea what you're talking about. I think part of it is getting confirmation. I mean, there were moments leading up to the decision where my husband was finishing my sentences and he was saying things to me that I was thinking. It's like, okay, Lord, that's confirmation. And then there were just other things that just kind of lined up along the way that made me see, okay, walking away is fine. It's okay if no one else gets it. And the feeling on the other side is just great. I mean, am I scared of starting over? Absolutely. It's kind of one of those walk through the fear things, but I can't describe the calmness.
Yeah.
It's really good.
One of the things that I think is so important, if someone is going through transition, and I'd love you to speak into this, sometimes when we do need to walk away, and I had this too, sometimes it has you start to doubt your identity, and your worth, which is absolute BS, because just because you have walked away doesn't mean that you completely forget everything that you've learned, your experiences, your strengths and gifts and so forth. Speak a little bit about that too, and even just allow that to even lift you up as you're reminded that, okay, you're taking stock, you're building up some key foundations, you're letting God breathe into that and bring opportunities, so that when you do rise, it's at a trajectory, for want of another word, that is going to continue to bless and lift and strengthen you, rather than you're striving so much that it's draining you, and you're getting to somewhere where you think, oh, I'm just so exhausted, I'm not enjoying it. Are you finding that as well?
Absolutely. I mean, it's an interesting journey, because I've had lots of doubts. I mean, there were lots of doubts even before I made the decision to leave, because at the point that I started considering leaving, I was so mentally stressed that I couldn't really think clearly. And I think I was pulled in so many directions at the time that I was just feeling completely depleted. Which isn't a great space to make a big life decision. But I had lots of doubts about starting over, about leaving the partnership, about leaving my team. I had clients in 15 different cities. So there were a lot of people that were counting on me to pull through work and plans for the following year. So in a lot of ways, I felt like I was letting a lot of people down. My internal team and my external clients. And so I had a lot of emotional letting go that I had to do, just to know that, hey, this is work. Everybody's going to be fine. I'm going to leave things in the best possible place that I can. I'm not running away off the edge of the earth, so people can call me if they need to. So I had to make peace with, and this is one of my personality flaws. I have this tendency to feel like, well, I can't leave, because if I leave, then all these other things are going to happen, and they impact so many different people. So over the course of making the decision, I had to make peace with, I'm going to be okay, and they're going to be okay. And I've just got to do everything I can to prepare them for my departure, but at the same time, start to prepare my heart and mind for closing this chapter. And that was harder than I thought it would be. It was a lot harder.
Yeah. Looking back on that, what would be one insight that you've learned that you'd want to share with people who are actually going through that at the moment? Was there any insight that now that you've gone through and you do actually realize that? Because sometimes it's something that we tell ourselves, we get through it and it's actuality and it goes, wow. So often we make things out which are not true through our own perceptions, those sorts of things.
Well, one of the biggest things for me is quitting's okay. I've over the course of however many years, I've had this mentality that I'm not a quitter. I'm not a quitter. Quitting is okay. It doesn't that something is your fault or the other person's fault. It could just be that it's time for this door to close and another door to open. And we have to allow that journey to happen, because if we don't, we get stuck in places where we don't belong.
Yes.
And so I've had to change my mentality around quitting. I have this level of thinking that, I'm determined, I have to persevere. There's a time for that, and there's a time to quit and say, my time here is done, and to close the door gracefully. And that's something I'm still getting better at.
Yeah, I think that's a huge lesson for all of us. I mean, how often do we consider and weigh up opportunities that we say yes to and take on board? Yet as CEOs, as entrepreneurs and, directors of our business, sometimes it is recognizing that if you continued on that pathway, you would be burned out. You would probably through that not be able to deliver the best to your clients that you strive for and that you like to deliver. And so making the decision to say, you know what, this opportunity no longer serves me. It no longer will serve my client. So I'm making a decision to end that. And so it's what we say goodbye to and what we close the door to can be just as important. To those things that we say yes to. So that's a great lesson to all of us. Let's talk about being careful about the people that we have closest to us and who we go into business partnership with. What are some key insights you want to share with this?
Well, I have a tendency to say yes, because in saying yes, I see possibilities and opportunities, and I'm thinking through all the great things that can happen with a yes. One of the things I've learned over the last few years is to say yes slower. I'm still not great at it because my brain goes to all the possibilities and the positive paths that may come. But I'm trying to teach myself to say yes slower. And by that, I mean to take time to pray and to actually wait for God to actually give a sign or say a word. I have a tendency to say yes and then pray, okay, God, can you bless it?
Yeah.
Well, the right thing is to do that the other way around. So I think in slowing down and actually praying first and waiting and giving God time to breathe and move and speak, I can be smarter about whom to partner with, whom to work with, versus my tendency has been to just see all the positives and move forward.
Yeah. One of the most comforting things that I find, and it can be a little bit scary too if you think of it when I share what I'm about to share, is that God knows us better than we know ourselves. So when we try and hide something from him or a thought goes through our head, it's out there already. He knows.
It's done.
That. But at the same token, sometimes opportunities that we think are just going to be absolutely marvelous have the door closed on us. And I've had situations like that where something has happened, I think, God, that is fantastic. And
it's
then I want the door to be closed down the track. And it was like, what was that? But then I realized later on, had that continued, I would have been drained. It's like, child, this could be a really good opportunity, but not an opportunity for you.
Yes.
It's such a great reminder that we need to lean in, we need his counsel, we need to bring it to prayer, and he will show us. So if you think then of opportunities, again, is that because now you are more reflective and self-aware on yourself and your energy and how that's going to impact not just you, but also the people around you? Those are now things that you consider when you're looking at opportunities?
Absolutely. I've been a bit rose-colored glass in my view of a lot of things. That's the positivity. What I'm trying to do now is a better job of balancing, okay, what will this cost me in time and energy? I tend to run 100 miles an hour. I have one of those personalities where I burn candles on both ends at home and at work. And my family and my children are getting to the age where it's like, okay, I can't continue to burn both ends. I've got to be more mindful of the decisions I'm making and how it's going to impact my family. And quite honestly, how it's going to impact my own energy and ability to do the things that feed my soul. So I'm trying to do a better job of evaluating what each opportunity will bring, but then also what it's going to take for me to do it the way I know that I'm going to run at it. And just try not to take on so much that it just becomes overwhelming.
Yeah. It's when you're talking about burning the candle at both ends, I know that I can certainly relate to that, and I'm sure many women can too. And we're so often reminded that when we are saying no to an opportunity, or maybe we do need to do some work and work on a project, and then the children, there's this whole thing that I think around guilt that many women can.
Oh gosh.
And I don't know what it was, but whether it was years ago that I thought, you know what, I am not, and this probably sounds ridiculous, but let me explain. Guilt is a wasted emotion. I just refuse. I do. I refuse to feel guilty. But here's what I do. If something happens in my gut, and I think, what's not right? I said, what is it, Lord? I can make a better choice. If something is not right, stand back. Have a look at the situation. What can I do better? And maybe it is just saying, you know what, it is what it is, and this is what I needed to do. But speak a bit about that, because sometimes, as women, we want to be all things to all people.
To everyone.
But, like the Proverbs 31 woman, I mean, my goodness, I don't know what she was on, but she was just amazing. But it's okay. We don't have to have everything right now, this moment in time, do we?
No, we don't. And I think it's part of our culture that we want to be the best at everything at every moment. And the reality is, I know balance has become kind of a bad word, so to speak, but we can run at full cylinders on different aspects of our lives at different times. It's about seasons. And so that's what I'm embracing. I've had some great seasons where I was 150 miles an hour about my career. Right now, I'm purposely choosing to walk away from one entrepreneurial venture to start another. And a part of that is about me being more available and more active at home. My kids are 14 and 11. So I now have teenagers.
Yes.
I need to be home more. I'm sure there are other women who may have husbands that stay at home. My husband and I both work big jobs. And we're at the point in our lives when it's like, okay, well, we've got to figure out how to integrate this better.
Yes.
My guilt, my wasted emotion has been over travel. I have, for the last 7 to 10 years had jobs where I traveled. This last role, I traveled a lot. It was all domestic. It wasn't global. So that was good. But it was 60% of the time I was on the road somewhere. So it took a toll on our family because, my husband was traveling sometimes. I was traveling sometimes. So it became this juggle that was so crazy. We were doing it and we were in it, but being outside of it now, we're wondering why in the heck were we?
Yes.
Why were we doing that? So I'm looking for more simplicity.
Yes. And I think what you've just said about balance, and I don't know what it is, but I remember years ago, I was in the career industry for decades. And back then I already in the research was that, balance for someone, whatever it might be, is quite different to someone else.
Yes.
And that changes, as you said, with various seasons. And sometimes we do need to take a step back, if we have young children or they're teenagers or whatever it may be, and that is okay.
Yes.
And it's recognizing, it's being comfortable that make a decision, that's it, let's move forward. And it's such a great reminder that that not to compare ourselves with what other people are doing. They don't have the circumstances or the situation that we're going through. And sometimes, and this is what I found, and I'd love you to share a little bit more about this, you've recognized that you don't want to do a lot of travel. For me, I wouldn't want to do a lot of travel either. I'm a bit of a homebody. My husband, his love language, have you heard of the 5 love languages? His is quality time. So if I'm traveling, well, guess what? He gets a little bit, anxious that way. So I recognize that. So I think of what's a good business model that will allow me to continue doing my work, but doesn't require me to do that much more travel. What I did when I could see that I was going to get too busy was just reworked the model of my business and how I was going to do that. And what I was going to then say to you is that perhaps something that you have done now too, looking at what's the best way that you can work to continue to do what you want to do, but in a way that really suits your lifestyle and you know, how you like to work. So I'll just repeat that question and then you can go in and answer that. Everything's recording. So Laura, one of the things that I did when I looked at my business model towards the end of last year, actually, for me, I know I don't like to do a lot of travel. I'm a bit of a homebody, and my husband likes to have me home. That's just his love language, quality time. But what I did was restructured my business model that will allow me to do training and work with clients, but more on a virtual way rather than a lot of travel. So is that maybe something that you did look at, okay, this is what I'd love to achieve, my goals, but maybe look at different ways of delivering that so that it does suit my lifestyle and what I'm willing to do? What was that like for you?
I haven't been absolutely closed off to travel. Travel is one of my passions. I love to travel. I just need to do it in a way that's more manageable.
Yes.
So right now, my pursuit is partnerships that are local clients, and rebuilding some of those relationships. So for the last few years, my work really hasn't been in the same city I live in. It's been outside of that. So I'm reconnecting with old colleagues and friends, which is delightful, and really looking to build my base of clients here first, and then go from there.
Yeah.
So I haven't been quite so deliberate in kind of setting a boundary, but I'm just very conscious of it right now, and wanting to reestablish how I work and where I work.
Yeah, fantastic. Just speak a little bit more. You've already touched on this about walking away and quitting and saying no, closing the door is not something that we need to feel guilty about, and something that we certainly don't need to be shameful about. It's just the right decision for you at that particular time. Just speak a little bit into that, because I know that for many entrepreneurs, particularly Christian entrepreneurs, that can be a struggle. That can almost, if that has happened or is on the cards that, hang on, something needs to change, we can often take on shame, which really we shouldn't need to at all. So let's speak a bit around this.
Oh gosh, I will not pretend like this was easy. I don't want to give the impression that, oh, I prayed and came to me and it was easy. It wasn't. There was a lot of tears, which is kind of hard for me to admit because I'm not a crier per se. But there definitely was a point of a breakup almost, of feeling like, okay, well, this part has to end and it's time for me to walk away. I mean, I think the thing that I've learned through this process is you really are, as an entrepreneur, when you go into a partnership, you're really creating a marriage of a business sense. And I'm a firm believer in premarital counseling. So, going into this again, I would approach it differently. I would engage in the premarital counseling, so to speak, from a business standpoint, and do a lot more investigating and planning and thinking through how it's going to work. And it's no disparagement on the other person or the other entity, actually, because there were two entities coming together. It's just from a whole lifestyle and all of it together wasn't the right thing. Lots of prayer, lots of seeking counsel from close people that I trust, lots of long conversations with my husband about what kind of life do we want to build and how do we want to build it. Lots of journaling, and just getting it all out and being really honest with myself first before I could be honest with someone else about where I was and what I was thinking. So it definitely was a process. I don't want to make it sound like it was, overnight.
Yeah. And it's such a reminder too that when that decision has been made, that door is closed, that sometimes there's a process to building up, the other end, because so often, okay, next opportunity. And it's a reminder that slow down.
Yes.
And I would imagine too that you mentioned earlier that with a lot of the travel, you were feeling quite drained. So having the opportunity to step back allowed you to recuperate and just reset. Yes?
Yes, absolutely. I purposely took some time off after closing that door. I intentionally did not walk right into something else. I distinctly remember getting a phone call from a recruiter about a job opportunity, and I laughed. And the recruiter was so shocked that I laughed. And he said, "Oh my gosh, what is going on?" I said, I am purposely not working right now. I need a moment. And I'm enjoying taking that moment and pausing and being intentional about saying no to everything to give myself a chance to just recuperate, to detox in a sense, and just let a lot of things go and release and feel free from. And I'll never forget, the recruiter said to me, his statement was, "Oh, you're taking a radical sabbatical." And I laughed, and he went on to tell a story about another woman that he knew and her journey. And I said, yes, that's what I'm taking. So I'm going to steal that. I'm taking a radical sabbatical.
Yeah.
And it was just good for my soul. I needed to pause to just think through, where am I going? What am I doing? And am I in the plan that's uniquely for me, and not just doing what I think everyone else wants me to do or what everyone else is doing? But am I uniquely operating out of my strengths and gifts that God's given me to do the work that I feel like I'm here to do?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm striving for now, is striking that balance.
Yeah, so important. And I think, something that you said is just such an important insight for all of us. When we do close the door on something, and there are those emotions there, a lot of what we've spoken about today, you want to make sure that you have healed from certain things, gotten the strength, and really be able to put that to bed, so to speak, and to really close that. Because how often when we do rush from one opportunity to the other without really closing the door and really being comfortable with that, we then can bring some of that unfinished business, so to speak, to the other opportunities. And that could then, unfortunately, tarnish, what could be really fantastic, yet we're bringing
baggage,
assumptions and whatever, to the other opportunities. We don't want to be dragging any baggage with us to other opportunities. Leave that. Leave that.
Let it go.
Yeah, absolutely. Laura, it's been such a pleasure and an honor to speak with you today. I think what you've shared is just so important for us. Anytime that we have a decision, a really big decision, which is going to change the direction of our business, our life, and leaning in, journaling, praying, prayer, all of that is just so important. If people would like to find out more, get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn, Lura Hobbs, LuraHobbs. And for the executive women or entrepreneurial women that may be listening, I actually have a Facebook group called Bravas, BRAVAS. It's for leading ladies. And we talk about a lot of things that we've talked about with you today. Just giving ourselves permission to make those tough decisions, supporting each other. And talking about how to create whether you want to call it balance or integrating, but finding the right mix of work and home and life to make it all work in a way that we feel like we're honoring God and the gifts that He's given us. So.
Yeah, fantastic. And we'll put all of the links, Laura, for you on our show notes. And for those of you who are listening, we have recorded this and we've also streamed live on Facebook. There was a little bit of a hitch though, because I lost the internet. But you can go and get all of those links and connect through with Laura at ambitiousentrepreneurnetwork.com/TCE17, ambitiousentrepreneurnetwork.com/TCE17. All of those details will be there. Before we go, Laura, I just wanted to share with everyone, if you've got a message that you want to share, you really feel called that you want to make an impact in the lives of others, maybe through your story, your journey, things that you have gone through, and maybe a podcast is something that you might be thinking could be a really good way, but you don't know where to start. One of the things that I've done is put together a free training for you. It includes all of my step-by-steps, what I do pre and post-production, no cost, low cost tools, put that all together for you. AnneMarieCross.com/mini training. Get access to that. AnneMarieCross.com/mini training. And that gives you all of those tools for you to get started. Laura, what I'm doing for all of my guests is saying a word of prayer. and a blessing. Is that okay? Can I do that?
Yes, that'd be lovely.
Yeah, fantastic. Father, thank you for the opportunity that we can hear Lura share her testimony, her journey. Father, sometimes it's really difficult to make decisions that really can impact our life and our business, but knowing that, leaning into you, using your strength when we feel weak and when we feel indecisive is often the best thing, because that's when you can turn our weaknesses and our insecurities or our doubts and our indecisions into clarity and with your strength. Father, I just pray that you'll be with Lura and her husband and her family as she continues to go through this transformation. Father, refresh, replenish her. She's got incredible gifts and talents, and I know that you're positioning her to continue making a difference and an impact in a different direction, of course, and we pray that you'll continue to give her the clarity that she needs moving forward. Father, we just want to pray for people who are listening or who are viewing this recording, if they're going through a transition, particularly if they're executive or professional women, that they'll reach out and join the support group that Lura has started. It's so important, Lord, to surround ourselves with like-minded people at these times, because sometimes we can get stuck in our doubt and our fear and indecision. But Father, we just pray that, that we will be surrounded, perhaps join the group that Lura has created, so that we can talk to someone about that. And of course, you are there always, at any time of day or night, ready and waiting to listen and to really support us. And we ask this all in the precious name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you
Amen.
so much, Lura.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Lovely to speak with you. Thank you for sharing that. I know that it's going to impart incredible blessings on someone who needs to hear that. So thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thanks, Anne-Marie. Bye.
Bye.
Podcast, daily conversations with Christian entrepreneurs to inspire and empower Christian business owners to walk strongly in their faith. Well, build a thriving business that honors.
And I've just realized I pressed the wrong one, but it doesn't matter because we're not live. So let me just do this and we can edit it out.
You've been listening to the Christian Entrepreneurs Podcast, brought to you by BeTheDifferenceMovement.com. Changing the world one message at a time. Do you feel called to influence real change with your message? Join our supportive community of like-minded influencers, thought leaders, and disruptors at www.BeTheDifferenceMovement.com. That's BeTheDifferenceMovement.com.